except that the Board of Adjustment will not convene. You won't be able to tell the difference, but we will not convene because the applicant has withdrawn the variance request.
Correct.
Okay, so with that, I've called it to order. Can we have a silent roll call? And Michael, will you lead us in the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, the first item of business is approval of the February 9th Development Review Board meeting minutes. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
And a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. The ayes appear to have it, do have it, and so ordered. The next item of business, as I just mentioned, that the first case for the Board of Adjustments, case number 2427V, has been withdrawn at the request of the applicant, so the Board of Adjustment will not meet. Is that correct?
Yes, Chairman Burns, that public hearing has been canceled.
Okay, we will sort of conduct this like a public hearing, even though the Board of Adjustment is not meeting, so that we can take testimony. Is that correct, Counselor?
That's correct, Mr. Chair. I believe how Stacy has it set up is to do presentation on both the items because it's one project. The applicant will then present. There can be question and answer between the commission and staff, commission and the applicant, and then public comment, and then action on both items separately.
Okay, so when I'm calling the next, do I call both cases simultaneously?
You can just ask for a staff presentation on both.
Okay, that's the way then that we will approve that. So calling planning and zoning case number 24-19-PP and calling development review board case number 24-28-FW. Stacy, will you explain to us what we're considering?
I will. Thank you, Chairman Burns, members of the commission. As the chairman just described, we will be listening to two cases and not the variance case. I did want to explain, I still have this as part of the presentation, that originally, as many people here actually here for the public hearing may have noticed, at least when we had the public hearing in January, as you all recall, that meeting was continued to this date. There was quite a bit of feedback about the wall. After discussion with the owner, applicant, and his legal representative, they determined that they no longer needed to have a perimeter wall. And so that request, which originally was a wall that was going to surround, for most part, the entire community on the right-of-way frontage, has now been removed. There may be small retaining walls that might be required, but there's no privacy wall. So
Can I just interrupt at one
Yeah.
point? There's been rumors about that because of the withdrawal for the variance, that the orientation of the units was going to flip. Is there any merit in that rumor?
Well, Chairman, there may be, but I might let the applicant make that presentation.
Okay.
I'm just here to provide you sort of a cursory view about the requests at hand, and then you can ask those questions of the applicant.
Okay.
Is that all right?
Yeah, okay. More to come.
Oh yeah, more to come, exactly. So what we're here to listen to is the preliminary plat. It's a request to divide or subdivide nearly 4 acres on R3 multifamily residential into 26 condominium units in 2 phases for a new subdivision named Vista Carefree. Along with that request, there is a request for a fill waiver, and you all are familiar with those cases. Basically, it's a condition where an applicant is looking to request more fill than cut underneath the building pad. As you know, our zoning ordinance looks for more cut or an even balance. So the request is to allow for the quantity of fill beneath 10 building pads to exceed the quantity of cut material in order to construct residential units 17 to 22 in Vista Carefree. I believe that's actually 26. That's my mistake. So to get into the presentation and the project itself, a little bit of context. As you know, it is an infill parcel. It is comprised of 4 separate parcels at the moment. It is basically just east of town center, town hall specifically. Looking at the existing conditions on the site, looking at that a little bit more closely, there are some development hurdles. one being a wash that does bisect the property, nothing that's unusual and carefree, as well as some site conditions. There's what we would call a berm that seems to run along the Happy Hollow Carefree Drive frontage. The Cave Creek Road frontage you can see is on the opposite side. There will be access from Happy Hollow into the development, as well as there will be access from Cave Creek Road into the lower units. However, they will not be connected vehicularly. There will be a pedestrian bridge, but we'll get into that in a little bit more detail. So here's the proposed preliminary plat, just to understand that there's unit boundaries as well as the building footprint. But as you can basically see, as I described, that there is one entrance off of Happy Hollow Drive that serves 16 of those units. You can also see some of the amenities. There's guest parking, there's a pool, there's some ramadas. That is on the north side, as well as on the south side. While there aren't those same amenities as I mentioned, there is pedestrian access between the two sides of the development, so that the southern units have access to those amenities as well. With regards to grading and drainage, this map represents the grading plan, but what is really highlighted is the bank protection. As you can see, that there are 3 retention basins that are being proposed, as well as 2 different kinds of bank protection, one being a geocell that is filled with fill, and another, as you can see in purple, is a geotextile, but it will be planted and landscaped. So with that said, here's a little bit more of an illustrative plan. This shows the landscaping. You can see that there's a decent amount of vegetation that's proposed both along the street frontages as well as internal to the development. And here are some of the proposed site amenities in a little bit more detail. You can see the ramadas, you can see the pool area. We'll get to another slide in just a moment. As you can see, there does appear to be a retaining wall that has a view fence or protective fence on top of it. So there will be some walls that are still proposed in this development. Again, just getting another vantage point of what it looks like from both Happy Hollow Drive and Cave Creek Road. Likely those entries may change. As you can see, these were previous illustratives that show the perimeter wall, but the applicant will likely propose entry monument signage to the development from both entries. Just giving you an idea of the architecture that's proposed. I think what's most important here, we're not looking at in terms of the design per se, but in the zoning ordinance, it does require additional height. It requires there to show that there's interest and articulation in the architecture. As you can see, there's a central piece, the main center area, that has been raised to up to about almost 24 feet, but not quite 24 feet. And the other have stepped down, and this is something that we look for, again, in zoning. So again, just to give you another idea of what the architecture looks like, we work with the applicant to get some contextual materials as well as colors, desert themes that we like to see. And here's the third type. There are 3 types of building units. The first 2 are fairly similar. This is the third that is a little bit smaller, that is towards the middle of the development. In terms of the infrastructure, these will be private roads, so they will be owned and maintained by the developer at first and then the HOA. There will be some minor off-site traffic and pedestrian improvements. Those pedestrian improvements tie into our almost approved circulation plan. The sewer will be provided by Liberty Utility. I think at the last public hearing, the meeting that we had, the will serve letter would need to be updated and provided by Liberty Utility at the final plat. That was an added condition of approval. Water will be provided by Carefree Water Company, and at this time for both phases, there is a certificate of assured water supply for each. Did you have a question?
There is, because in your write-up it says that we're awaiting an updated CAWS.
I think I did receive the cause. Is that correct, Jim? I do have both of them. My apologies. Yeah, I think that is just an old statement. We have them both. I did receive those at the last submittal. The property will be serviced by Rural Metro Fire Department for fire and public safety. They have reviewed the development and they meet all fire requirements, or all fire requirements shall be met at the time as we move forward towards the development plans. Lastly, obviously other utilities including electric, gas, phone, internet, cable, trash collection will be managed by the development, and of course police protection. The fill waiver, again, this is for the units 17 to actually 26. What I did was I tried to show, hopefully you can see that, you can see the existing elevations in red, and then the proposed building pads are highlighted in yellow. And as you can see, a lot of it has to do with coming off of Cave Creek Road so that you don't have such a severe drop. The applicant is trying to work with our cut and fill requirements, but to have logical access that includes for fire safety and other services such as trash.
Another question. So the fill in excess of cut is going to be focused on this phase 2 area?
Correct.
And just along all the way to where the wash is? I mean, is that the area that we're going to be raising? From Cave Creek Road to the wash?
Yes, well, I would say not all the way to the wash. I mean, there is, as you can see, that there's 2 units that would be close to the wash. It's a little harder to see on because there's sort of a cut sheet right there.
Right.
But it does, I believe there's retaining walls adjacent to those units, as well as you can see the basin also has a retaining wall, and then the upper units closest to Cave Creek Road don't impact the wash in terms of its location.
Okay,
Does that make sense?
I think.
You think? Okay. So I did want to show the proposed wall plan. As you can see, the walls that were taken out of the project are those that were highlighted in purple. But in order to meet, again, a lot of those cut and fill requirements, these units are actually sitting lower on the property than what the existing terrain typically shows. And so you can see to the west, there's tiered retaining walls, as well as to the south of the pool and the ramadas, we have retaining walls as well. And then those do then drop down. And then the wash, should have mentioned when I was talking about the grading plan, is not changing its alignment. It'll just be receiving that bank protection that we looked at. And then there is a smaller wall that will be between the tennis courts and the southern units that you can see that are sort of to the west of those units. So just to get an idea, I mean, these are the materials for the retaining wall. There will be, again, the mesh that they're using for the fall protection and also to comply with the pool barrier requirements. But you can see they're utilizing a textured CMU block, which is something that we see in Carefree. So to discuss citizen participation quickly, the neighborhood meeting was held on January 25th of 2018. So we have been looking at this project for a while. There's approximately 37 attendees, not including the development team at that time, meaning that the development team was there, but it's not counted in those 37 attendees. And the citizen participation report does describe sort of their process, response to some of the concerns that were raised at that meeting itself. Public notification requirements for this meeting today were also met. Letters were sent both in December and February responding to the continuance. The ad was placed twice, as well as the required signs were amended at the property. So as you know, we did hold the public hearing on January 12th. We wanted to be sure that people that were possibly not able to make it tonight had a chance to be put on the record, and that has all been outlined in your reports. And the commission has agreed at that time on January 12th to the continuance of what brings us here today for the public hearing and the fill waiver request. So for conditions of approval, there's several outlined in the report. I just wanted to highlight a few. For one, there won't be pools and spas permitted at these units, similar to the view. The geotechnical engineer shall accept and seal all structural related site work, as well as the drainage and maintenance easements and agreements will be considered. I think that was something that we discussed on January 12th as well. Based on this recent withdrawal of the variance, meaning also withdrawal of the wall, we did want to add a couple of additional comments, or I should say conditions of approval. to ensure that since the changes that the applicant has proposed don't dramatically change the site layout or the unit designs considerably, there are some modifications, however, that do need to be addressed and massaged into the grading and drainage plan at the front where those walls originally were standing. But all other grading and drainage will substantially comply with the submitted plans. Same with revising the landscape plans, obviously with the change in the orientation of the units. It just means that some of the landscaping needs to be, again, adjusted to accommodate that new layout. But most importantly, we just want to be sure that those are still considered front yard setbacks, and so that the final plat will have to comply with all our zoning requirements as well as our subdivision ordinance regulations. So with that said, I'm happy to answer any questions. Other than that, if no questions for me, then we'll continue on, ask the applicant to present, and then open up the public hearing.
Any questions from the?
Not at this point.
I do, a follow-up to our attorney. Presumably, the developer is going to be the one that's granting, he's the grantor of easements, and he's also assuming, she, it, is assuming the liability for the maintenance of the drainage and all of that. Once he sells out all the units, who is the successor to, who owns the land that's burdened by all these obligations and easements?
Well, Mr. Chair, thanks for the question. On the plat, it does pass the obligations onto the homeowners association so that the town would have someone to go after in the event they need to clean out the drainage, clean out the wash, clean out any culverts near the roadway. I can go back to find the specific note, but there's a note on the pre-plat, and it gets carried over to the final plat as well.
Okay. And we have secured or the developer has secured Liberty Utilities extension of their commitment to serve?
I'll have to ask the applicant to answer that question. I just wanted to be sure that it was received at final plat submittal.
Okay. Well, I'll wait until we get to the conditions. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I know there was a traffic analysis done, but I'm a little concerned about another roadway onto Cave Creek Road at that point. I know it's designed to be right turn only, and it's a smaller number of units, but it's getting pretty crowded there on Cave Creek Road, and I'm just concerned about that flow and then into the intersection of Tom Darlington and Cave Creek Road.
Chairman and Commissioner Smith, understood. I think the traffic study does support those two entries and exits. I would mention that at one time the applicant was interested in a left turn in and out, and the town felt that that was a little bit too much activity in that area, so they agreed and decided not to do that that cut in and out to have that movement there. I think with the limited number of units and the fact that it doesn't connect to the north side of the development, I think helps to, again, kind of manage the amount of traffic that might actually come and go from Cave Creek Road.
Okay.
Okay. Hear from the applicant?
Applicant's turn next.
If you'd, yes, please, and if you'd if you'd speak into the mic, B, if you'd identify yourself for the record, and C, make it an engaging presentation.
It's my great pleasure to be here this afternoon. Ed Bull, 1815 North Central Avenue. I'm here on behalf of the owner of the site, who's the project anticipated developer of the development, if subject to the various approvals. Also, Jim Shelley and Jeff Giles are here. My associate Madison Leak is here. That's really the face sheet of a PowerPoint presentation, one that we can make if you want, but it really has to do with many of the things that have already been touched on during staff's presentation. I want to emphasize from the get-go that we're really here requesting your approval of a preliminary plat that staff and we have concluded is in accordance with the code requirements for a preliminary plat. We can talk about that in more detail if you want, but staff is clear and the preliminary plat is in a posture to be approved. In fact, if it'd be filed later, it probably would have been administratively approved, but that's just how working with the legislature works. Secondly, with respect to the cut in excess of fill, I think was clarified during the presentation, that is needed in order to provide access through, it's not a berm, but it's higher grade adjacent to the street on one side serving 6 units than what the code allows. So we need to cut to provide for that. And the ideal situation is the site completely balances. That's the goal. But we do need to cut to provide it in that one location in what I believe is referred to as phase 2, which is really just 6
You need to
units.
cut or you need to fill?
We need to cut.
I'm confused then, because we don't have a limit, we don't have a requirement that the cut has to exceed the fill. We have the opposite requirement that fill has to exceed the cut.
It's my understanding that we're cutting to match the grade of the existing street.
Madison, could you pull up the site section and make it bigger so everyone can see it?
Yeah, but they can cut all day.
Do you want me to put my presentation back?
Yeah.
Peter, may I ask
They respond. I'm just trying to figure out what we're trying to
I think,
approve.
yeah, if I may just
Please.
add a bit before. It is true that that from Cave Creek Road to the site does require a pretty significant cut. However, our requirements really relate to the cut and fill under the building paths about where those units kind of rest on the property. And a few of those units seem to be higher above the natural grade than we would typically allow. Usually you want to try to find that balance. And I believe when discussing it with the applicant is also the fact that by having that area raised, not only it's under the building pads, but it also softens the slope down into the units. So it's
On the driveway.
right. So I don't disagree with what Mr. Bull is explaining, but as it relates to, however, our ordinance, it relates more to the units, but this also ties to how the access would function as well. But we
Okay,
are
but
specifically
we are-
talking about the units,
Just so I'm clear, we're
Correct.
approving more fill
right?
than otherwise would be permitted.
You are. Mhm.
Okay.
But a
that's-
lot of times it has to do with resolving a building issue, and this was kind of a combination building issue and access issue.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I apologize for any
No.
unintended confusion. I just know we need to match the street, and we have to cut to match the street, and this fill has to go on the site. And I don't have anything meaningful to add to the discussion you just had unless there's other discussion on that.
No, okay, proceed.
Thank you. The third thing I wanted to say, the first two being that I believe staff is supportive of both the preliminary plat and the fill waiver, is the stipulations. There's 20 in the staff report. I think it's now 23 in light of the, I understood to be 3 added today, all of which are acceptable. We don't contest any of those, and we know that that needs to be addressed, as does providing a confirming letter from Liberty Utilities prior to final plat approval. So,
If I can interrupt you one second. Stacy, help me here. My list has 20.
Right, I think Commissioner Burns, or Chairman Burns, I think what Mr. Bull is saying that there's 20, but we're going to add 3 more.
Ah. at some point you will pull back the curtain.
I will go back to that slide, but yes, it's just, I wanted it for your information so that when you make your motions, you be sure to include those.
So with respect to the stipulations, the 20 in staff's written report are acceptable. The 3 that were provided on the screen that Stacy was talking about are also acceptable. So all 23 are acceptable to us. And we know that they'll be carried forward to the final plat review and construction plans and so on and so forth. So if you have additional questions of us now, of course, we'll do our best to answer them. If you want me to go through the PowerPoint with additional, what I consider to be mostly architectural and landscaping kind of information, we can do it. But at least from my perspective, helping focus on the items that are in front of you, which are the preliminary plat, we believe and staff believes that these code requirements are satisfied for the preliminary plat. With respect to the fill waiver, again, without going back through all of that, where we need to take dirt from and where we will be putting it on, the ultimate goal is to have the site balance. Can't guarantee until we get further into final engineering that it doesn't balance, but nobody likes to import dirt, nobody likes to export dirt. The goal is to have it balanced. Third item being the conditions. All 23 are acceptable to us. We'd request your approval of the preliminary plat, request your approval of the fill waiver, subject to the conditions. And if you have questions, we'll do our best to answer them. If I may reserve some time for rebuttal if needed, I'd like to do so.
Peter, I have a couple of questions.
Let's start with Les.
Okay. Do I understand that by taking out the proposed wall, there's going to be essentially 25 feet from public space up to the back of each of the condominiums?
Yeah, there's still, Mr. Chairman, Commissioner,
Yeah.
along each of those 3 streets is still a front yard. And that front yard requirement of 25 feet will still be satisfied. The need for a wall was reevaluated and was determined that we don't have to have it. There will be some reorientation of the internal floor plans on the units so that adjacent to the street is really a front porch rather than what was effectively the back of the unit before. The owner and proposed developer believes that will be very attractive and a good street scene as well. But the front yard obligations will, with respect to the setbacks, will continue to be honored along all 3 street frontages.
Do you anticipate any kind of physical barrier between the sidewalk and the yards of any size?
Jim, I believe, where'd you go? Certainly landscaping, if to the extent that's considered a physical barrier, but
When we work through the grading, I'm sorry. Commissioners, my name is Jim Shelley. I'm the applicant on behalf of Carefree Mountain Vista LLC. And to answer your question specifically, we're not sure exactly yet because we're reworking that area. We need to make sure that we maintain drainage flows. We don't anticipate any walls. We do think there might be some retaining walls depending on how the grade is worked out, but we're still studying that and working on that.
Excuse me,
Sorry.
my understanding is that along Happy Hollow and Carefree Drive, there's a berm?
Yes.
Is it your plan to take that out?
Yes,
And
Commissioner.
move that to the grade that the homes are at, essentially?
correct. Yes.
Okay.
My architect friends tell me that you have to have a barrier between public space and private space. And it can be either landscaping, it can be a physical wall, it can be some barrier, but there has to be some psychological separation between what's a private space, which would be a back patio, and a sidewalk. I'm having a hard time visualizing this 25-foot space going outside the back patio of these properties facing Happy Hollow, looking out toward the street. There's 25 feet. What's going to be in that 25 feet?
Lushly landscaped desert plant material, a common walkway along the right-of-way, and what was originally shown as the rear covered patio
Right.
is now becoming the covered front porch. So from the walkway going along Happy Hollow, Carefree Drive, and Cave Creek Road, a person can walk down that sidewalk and then walk into the front of the unit through a 25-foot front yard, which surrounds the property on 3 sides. So basically, we've flipped the front entrance from the internal private street to the exterior public street by means of pedestrian access. The vehicular access will still be through the private street on what is now the back side of the unit.
So the roadway plan does not change at all?
The roadway plan does not change. The preliminary plat, unit boundaries, project boundary does not change, but we need to work through all of the grading and drainage design and make sure that complies with this new concept of facing the streets to the, or facing the units to the perimeter streets, excuse me.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Well, in order,
Yes, sir.
Mr. Nemski.
with regards to stipulation 15, I just need a point of clarification, because essentially this reads that
Hang on.
approval shall be contingent within 18 months of receiving a copy of the Liberty Utilities Agreement, as well as the stipulation or proof that the Arizona
Oh, you have 'em,
Department of
okay.
Water Resources, that you have an assured 100-year water supply. I thought I heard earlier that the Liberty Utilities Agreement was already done. Is that correct or not?
Commissioner, Chairman, we have a will serve letter from Liberty Utilities stating that we're in their certificate of convenience and necessity, their service area, and that they will serve our community if we decide to move forward by such and such a date. That date has come and gone, so I reached out to Liberty Utilities to request an updated will serve letter, and I haven't heard back from them yet, which is why the stipulation Stacy added is we will agree to stipulate that we will have a will serve letter from Liberty Utilities if I have to go down and camp in their front entryway by the time our preliminary plat is heard. They're a big company, they're overworked, and it's just, they take a while to respond.
Okay. And I assume, in terms of the 100-year water supply, it's a similar explanation?
We actually have our certificate of assured water supply from Arizona Department of Water Resources for Phase 1 and Phase 2. At the time of the January 9th, January 12th hearing, we didn't have it on Phase 2 yet. That's a year and a half long application process. Since that date and at this date, we now have the certificate on Phase 2. So we have them for both
Okay,
phases.
thank you.
Okay.
I'm just curious, I'm confused. The front entrance is going to be at the outside street. Is that correct?
That's correct,
How are you going to get to it?
with the sidewalk.
In between units?
No, from the front sidewalk along the
So if
perimeter
I'm a-
right-of-way.
If I'm a guest and I park in one of the parking spots, which is kind of next to the pool or in that area, how do I get to the front door of the unit I want to go to?
I'm anticipating, and I have to work this out with staff, that if somebody wants to access a unit on Happy Hollow, they're likely going to park on Happy Hollow and enter the unit from the sidewalk.
But there's also a side yard entrance
Correct.
Why don't you explain that? Because I think the question is really, how do guests come visit a resident?
I do. There you go. So if you look what's on your screen, this is our building A. And no, this is what we're working on. This is
the revised one.
correct. Yes. So in this revised layout, at the top of the page, front or upper left-hand corner, it's called a covered front porch. It's got a pair of front doors that open into a parlor. Then there's a kitchen, breakfast nook, and then the side yard has a door that takes, you know, if people want to let their dog out into a secured area to do what dogs do, they go out the back door, and then there's a back gate if they want to walk to the pool area, if guests want to park in the guest parking, et cetera. Again, this is a work in process, so we're working within the lines that are on the preliminary plat to reconfigure these units so that they face the public street.
I guess so if I come down and I park down here where it says Forum, okay, give or take, I mean, that's where the public parking is internally, correct, in that
Yes.
area?
Yes, Commissioner.
Then for me to get to unit, I end up going in the side yard? Or I guess I'm trying to figure out, I don't know what the space is between the units. Is there gonna be a walk there so I can go in the front door?
Can you see the mouse? There's a door there and a door there, so those would be a way to access from the point.
I understand that, but
Or
that's,
alternatively, they could park in guest parking, walk around via the sidewalk to the public right-of-way, and then walk to the front of the unit.
There will be a sidewalk between each building?
There will not be a sidewalk between each building, Chairman.
There is, or there is
There will
not?
not be a sidewalk in
So
between
they'll
each
have to go
building.
through the driveway and around?
Or they walk around the access point from Happy Hollow or from Cave Creek to get to the front of the unit.
Let me try to answer this.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay.
Sorry.
So let's deal first with residents and then deal with guests, if we may, because this layout, while my wife and I live in a single-family detached home, it's a similar layout in the sense if I'm or my wife are coming or going, yes, we can park in the street, but most likely we're going to pull in and out of our garage and come in through the kitchen door between the garage and the kitchen, right? I think most of us operate that way. If one of our daughters or a neighbor's coming over, it's theoretically possible we just meet them and go through the garage with them, but we also have a side yard very similar to what's shown on this floor plan on the left side of your screen. And very similar to this, we have a gate that gates that little courtyard along the side of our house. That gate, in our case, is not locked, but guests can come through that gate, or I could too if I parked in the street, come through that gate and then come into what's really our living room door, coming into the unit. In this case, in addition, if somebody parked above the floor plan, actually parked in the street rather than the planned on-site guest parking, yes, they could walk up through a landscaping area, walk up to the covered porch if we were, front porch, if we were sitting out there having a cup of coffee and come on in. But there are ways for guests to park internally and get into the living space itself. Very similar to what occurs in a variety of locations in the valley.
So then if the real only change is you put a covered porch on the front?
As a practical matter, I believe that's
I mean,
correct.
I'm sure you're doing
And-
other things too, but
Yeah.
I mean, is that generally,
That-
that's the change, correct?
That's one of the primary things, and at least in most scenarios, the front of the house does face an adjacent public street. Not all, but in most of them. And that's really what this design calls for. And we can call it eyes on the street or neighborhood interaction, any number of planning-like names that go with it. But putting a front porch there facing the street is the primary adjustment that's been made. And elimination of the wall because there's no longer a backyard on that side of the house.
Now, Stacy, can you clarify something for me? I should know this, but I don't. We're being asked to approve a preliminary plat today. If we do that, what is the next step in the process and who does it go to? Does it go directly to council or does it come back to us? Where does it go for final approval of the plat?
Right, so Chairman Burns, Commissioners, so today, the next step would be they would submit for the final plat. And final plat also includes infrastructure plans, similar plans to the conceptual grading, landscaping that you saw in your package, but to build, you know, so they're more detailed at that point. Under current state statute, it will go to staff approval.
The change by the.
Excuse me, whoa.
I'm sorry.
We have some order here. I laid it down.
Thank you. What is your proposal for the signage naming the site now that you're removing the wall, which was going to have the signage on it?
A small wall sign at the entrance, I presume.
Chairperson, Council, or Commissioner, we will redesign the landscape wall plan and the landscape areas to accommodate entry monumentation that is outside of the front setback, but available and outside of the view triangle at those entry points, but still visual enough to where people will know where they're going and where they need to turn.
And I do have one other question, which is how were you expecting for people in these dwellings at the front to go to each other's front porches? I mean, is it just raw desert out there that they've landscaped?
Commissioner, no. What we're anticipating is designing a sidewalk or an entry walk, if you will, from the covered front porch to the sidewalk that runs along the perimeter right-of-way. And so they would walk out their sidewalk, they'd walk to the sidewalk along Happy Hollow, for example, and then they'd make another right-hand turn to walk into their neighbors. We try to encourage people not to walk across the desert, especially in March when the rattlesnakes come out. But it'll be a very lushly landscaped area. And if I could just add a personal note, as we were trying to listen to the citizens that did not like the wall variance and wrote letters to staff opposing that we be granted that variance, we really sat back and looked, how could we do this without this wall? This wall is obviously an emotional point that we needed to look at. So we did. We looked, how could we reconfigure the interior of our units, eliminate the wall, and therefore create more of a pedestrian connection, owner to owner, than previously, because it was a secured backyard and nobody, I mean, you'd have to reach up over a 6-foot wall to wave to your neighbor. Now, as they walk their dog down the street, you can be sitting on your front porch having a cup of coffee and wave hello. I mean, my wife Jane and I just moved into a house very similar to this design in North Scottsdale, unfortunately. I wish it was in Carefree. And we sit on our front deck and we wave to all the dog walkers. Sometimes our dogs bark at them, sometimes their dogs bark at us, but it's given us a connection to the neighborhood that I haven't experienced in quite a long time because everybody fences in their backyard. And it's really kind of nice. So I think this could really be a very positive, pedestrian-oriented community that fosters getting to know your neighbor rather than living behind a wall. So that's my soapbox for the day.
Personally, I think it's creative the way that you've flipped this, and I'm not sure all the details evidently haven't been worked out, but I think you might be on a better track than you were, and I'm grateful that we don't have a ton of driveways coming off of Happy Hollow. But I do, in your packet, on page 13 of 45, you had a meandering sidewalk that went along Carefree Drive and Happy Hollow and then on Cave Creek Road. Is that the same sidewalk that you're anticipating? Is there a sidewalk now in Happy Hollow?
Chairperson, that sidewalk still exists in our design. There is not one currently, and our sidewalk will be ADA compliant because it will be public space.
Right.
And right now, if you've walked along Cave Creek Road, it has such a side slope to it, you can't go down that in a wheelchair.
Right.
So our sidewalk is going to fix that.
Okay. Okay. Great. More questions or?
Sorry,
are we
I didn't mean to
turning
do
it-
that
No,
for you.
excellent. Good.
Well, go for it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's more to Stacy than, I think, the applicant. You know, we're looking at something that is going to continue to evolve / change. Now, I heard you respond to the chairman's question earlier, that this really isn't gonna come back before us. Is that correct?
Chairman Burns and Commissioner Nimsky, that is correct.
Okay, I guess that's my only problem, because we're being asked to vote on something that may change. Whether it changes significantly or not, I think is, at least in my view, immaterial. What we're being asked to do is based on representations, to approve something that we're not seeing. And it
Not a line on the
generates,
plat will change.
I think it does generate some questions in terms of how
I'm gonna sit back
ultimately
down.
this development will look.
Chairman Burns and Commissioner Nimsky, I understand your perspective, and quite frankly, I wasn't happy that the state legislation made the changes that they made. I would be much more comfortable going through a process in front of a board or commission. What I would say in terms of these modifications, and this is my opinion, but the grading in general is not going to dramatically change. It's only going to change in those front yard spaces to accommodate the access. The majority of the drainage, such as the bank protection, the detention basins, the way actually that and excuse me, you're right behind me, the way that the housing units sit on the lot, none of that is going to change. They are just trying to accommodate the reconfiguration of the floor plans because they're coming from a different perspective. And in turn, that also does affect the landscaping, but I would say it's not going to be any less. The grading and drainage, in my opinion, based on sort of the change in grade, isn't significant. I've talked to CJ DiMaggio, our town engineer, about that. So I absolutely appreciate your discomfort. I'm uncomfortable too. But I think what you have in front of you and the change, in fact, I believe reflects a lot of the commentary that we had at the January 12th meeting. But that's the best I can answer you. I'm comfortable that in terms of the preliminary plat requirements, the zoning requirements, those things have been met. But I appreciate your perspective.
Comment. I spend a good deal of time looking at all of these drawings and trying to imagine how you could move things around. But you have a tremendous constraint with a wash that is the entire length of the longitudinal distance of the property, and it runs from one end to the other, and it probably takes up 20 to 30% of the property. And so you don't have a lot of room to put all of these units, which you're entitled to put them on that property. And so my initial problem was, well, if we have to get rid of the wall, what's going to be there? And I kept thinking that, well, it looks like it's going to just be empty space. But by putting the front door up toward Happy Hollow, I think you've solved the problem. You landscape it, you put in some sort of meandering, maybe DG walkway or something like that, and it's a better plan than it was when you brought it to us in January. So I'm happy that you your creative people got creative and came up with some solutions.
Thank you.
I'd like to ask a few questions, and maybe our town engineer will weigh in on this. Hey, CJ. You're only going to, the Cave Creek entrance is a right in, right out. That means you have to be coming from the east to get into that property. So if you come up Tom Darlington, you take a right at the stop sign, you go down, you want to get into the, I guess, you have to do a U-turn right here in front. What? No, not if you want to get to the apartments on Cave Creek. So you're going to be doing U-turns there. There's only 4 units there, as I recall, right?
No, there's 6.
8
8, excuse
units?
me.
So we're going to have, obviously, a higher frequency than we have today. I don't know how often you're going to have that, but it was, help me with this, CJ. Is that the best solution, or is this really their traffic consultants' bailiwick that this was ideal? I'm just concerned about the number of U-turns we're going to be having in front of this parking lot. The one on page 13 of their presentation would work, I think. I don't know about that presentation, the presentation that was in our book.
Let me put my, I'll pull mine back up just a moment.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Commissioners, my understanding, my recollection of the traffic study, because that phase that's on the Cave Creek side is fairly small, there's only a few units there, it's the traffic volumes cataloged in the traffic study were quite minimal. So I think, yeah, I mean, there was a recognition that there wasn't going to be a possibility of a left turn because of the existing median, but with the number of units there, it's judged to be a fairly minimal impact.
De minimis, as they
De minimis, sure.
Okay, thank you. It's not this slide, but there's if you can get to their, well.
You want to go to their presentation?
The one that, not the one for today, but the one that was in the packet. It's page 13 of 45.
Okay.
No.
That's in the narrative.
Okay. Well,
Yeah, I don't have that one.
Okay, that's fine. You have the meandering sidewalks were displayed on this, both on Cave Creek Road and on Happy Hollow and Carefree Drive. Are those all going to be public access? I mean, those are open to the public? They're not, well, obviously, they're not going to be behind a wall because we gave up the wall.
Right.
But, okay.
Yes, they're public sidewalks.
Okay. Thank you for that. Wall, I had a sidewalk going out from each unit to that. Yeah, that would be on, well, they're not going to go out from the units on Cave Creek to Cave Creek? On the units that are on, I understand what you're doing on Happy Hollow. That makes perfect sense to me. But on Cave Creek, are they going to have sidewalks up to, again, the public street?
Whether it's a sidewalk or a compacted DG
Okay.
path, the description that Jim gave a few minutes ago about how you could walk from your front porch to the public sidewalk along the street, take the public sidewalk wherever you want to go, including over to your neighbor's unit, that would apply on all 3 street frontages.
Okay. A couple other questions that I came up with. You're going to be constructing both phases at the same time?
Yes.
Okay. In your discussion that was in our packet, there was a talk of condominium requirements or like essentially CCRs, and in our documentation referred to CCRs as opposed to these condominium things. And you say you're going to have you said you were considering or likely would include a 30-day rental minimum. Are you committed to a 30-day minimum, or are you still pondering a 30-day minimum, or?
Chairperson, thank you. I appreciate the question. Yes, we will have a 30-day minimum rental term in our condominium declaration. This will be platted as a horizontal condominium. Therefore, it's a condominium declaration as opposed to CC&Rs. It's just a different,
Okay,
it's a different name for the same type of document based on the
okay,
platform.
should we amend our conditions to talk about a condo declaration as opposed to a CC&R? I'm just asking.
Well, I mean, Nick,
Mr. Counselor?
I think staff can make that change, and so by
Okay.
time final plat, we can make sure that it reflects the correct name.
Okay,
but I
thank
think
you.
it's the commitment that's most important, Chairman.
What do you, in the big packet we got, which was 400,000 pages, it was really extensive, and I don't know who put that
Because he
together.
gave me all those documents, I wanted to share them with you.
Okay, but we have
Sorry, that's my fault.
not one, but two copies of the drainage report for Tranquil Trail 1 and 2, which is not your property, and I was wondering, and I'm sorry, I'm not an engineer, and I did not slog through that too, and some of it was old dot matrix printer, pages and pages and pages. What was the relevance of that?
Chairperson, those documents were provided to staff from citizen input. I believe that particular document came from the Alta Vista Apartments. And so what we did was we wanted to respond to that input that was given to staff. So the Alta Vista Apartments and the Carefree Terrace condominiums have both given staff input, and we've responded to both of those letters.
Okay, but that was a February 2014 document, and that at Tranquil Trail Village or Manor, or whatever it is, which is a couple hundred yards upstream from you, not downstream, just for reference materials.
Chairperson, we got input from both upstream and downstream residents.
Okay, well, there was, yeah, can you bring me up to speed? There was a lot of material in there, a lot of material. A lot of it I couldn't understand if I went back to school. But the Alta Vista, there's lots of things going on with Alta Vista Apartments, as I understand it, and the Carefree Terrace condos. And at some point, I read a document that said you were going to undertake to remove the vault building at your expense to take out the north side or build a wall on the north side and regrade, but you did not go along with the flood wall on the Carefree Terrace side. Can you just give me the nickel version of that back and forth, and what are you going to do that you hadn't planned on doing when we heard this document before?
Chairperson Burns, I'm happy to. The high-level
nickel version.
50,000-foot nickel version is, we've met several times with Carefree Terrace condominiums. Their parking lot floods during significant rain events. So we are, and I have my civil engineer, Jeff Giles, here that can speak to more specific questions. But the nickel version is this. Carefree Terrace hired a civil engineer, and they made suggestions to our drainage design. The first suggestion was to remove the vault building, which, as you can tell from looking at the plan, is a pinch point in that wash corridor. We are absolutely in favor of that, offered to do the demolition on our dime and remove that pinch point. Their second recommendation was to basically widen the concrete channel, which currently takes minor flows in stride, but is overwhelmed during significant rain events, and basically widen that concrete channel so that it has a larger capacity to carry water, which is along our common property line with Carefree Terrace condominiums. We were in favor of that as well. What we were not in favor of was they were suggesting we build a 500-foot long, basically flood wall, and our civil engineers analyzed that suggestion and said, that basically isn't going to work. Water goes where it goes, and it's going to go on both sides of that flood wall. And so that's not what they considered well, I don't want to speak for Jeff, but we looked at all three and said, we like 1 and 2, number 3 doesn't work.
Okay, just to orient me, on the picture that I believe is on the screen there, the buildings that are to the east, those are the condominiums? And the buildings that are on the south that are obscured by that plant material schedule is the apartments?
To explain this graphic that's on your screen, the key schedule, the plant material schedule, covers up the Carefree Terrace condominium buildings. What you're seeing is the parking structure where they have covered parking. And that parking structure, that linear parking structure, is parallel to the wash corridor.
Right. So then those are the condos, where the apartments are across Carefree Drive?
Alta Vista Apartments is across Carefree Drive on this graphic to your left. And it's not part of the illustrative. Illustrative?
That's all my questions for the applicant. Anybody have one question? Sure.
You call it the vault? What actually is that building?
I did a little research here, Commissioner, and we found out that that was a piece of real estate that had a sewer treatment plant easement in favor of Liberty Utilities. But if you read the easement, it expired on its terms when Carefree Terrace condominiums was hooked to public sewer. So every unit within Carefree Terrace condominiums is now serviced by Liberty Utilities. So the easement on its terms was void.
Is there a building on that square?
There is a building that is about 2 to 3 feet maybe above grade, and you go down this rickety old stairway, and you think it's going to be full of snakes, scares the bejeebies out of you, but it is an empty building that is not being utilized and is quite frankly an eyesore. So we're thrilled to make it go away.
And if I could direct just a question to our town engineer, that's not going to, we just spent a lot of money doing flood control work at that general location. What they're proposing with these two agreements is not going to affect that adversely?
It'll help it.
Aha.
No, Mr. Chair, thank you, Commissioners. The bunker, the mysterious bunker, doesn't appear to have any function in terms of a flood control attenuation, so its removal would not in any way compromise the performance of the washer or the conveyance of stormwater through the area.
Okay.
I have a question about
One
that,
more question.
Mr. Chairman. Are there any environmental considerations in removing that building since it was part of a sewage treatment? Is there extra cleanup that will have to be done underground?
Commissioner, Chair, I'm not familiar with any sort of environmental study that's been conducted for that bunker. I've not personally visited the bunker. I don't believe I've ever encountered records that indicate it's ever performed a treatment function so that it would have any. I can't speak to its potential environmental liabilities, but I've not seen any indication that it would have environmental liabilities unaddressed.
Thank you.
One more question. You know, earlier on in the presentation, you talked about the fact that as a result of removing the wall, right, you're using landscaping as a visual barrier in various places. I noticed on your proposed landscape plan that a lot of these are 5-gallon. Now, landscaping is one of my hobbies.
Uh-oh.
And 5-gallon plants are by and large maybe 1.5 feet tall. That, in my view, doesn't create a whole lot of a visual barrier of any sorts. And, you know, in this arid climate, unless you water the hell out of them, it's gonna take a long time for those things to grow large enough to be a barrier of sorts. Would you like to comment on that?
As we go through,
Ed, could I respond to that one?
please.
This is a native, high Sonoran Desert native site. Commissioner. And we have a ton of native plant material. We've done our inventory that we need to salvage. We will salvage the native plant material, we will inventory it and put it in a nursery, water it, et cetera. And working with staff, we will place those in with our landscape plan in strategic areas to where we have the best placement for the larger native plant trees and cactus and things like that. And those areas will be supplemented then with nursery bought material, the size of which will basically do whatever Stacy tells us to do.
And I
I don't
appreciate
like that
that.
either.
No, and I don't mean to make light of
lot of
that, but
pressure at this
for example, at the View, we walked the site and she's like, well, this tree would look nice here and this would look nice here. And we're like, yeah, absolutely. So there is some artistic endeavor to that type of placement, and we'll do the best we can to make sure that it looks right.
Yeah, and I appreciate that, and I'm not trying to debate that part. All what I'm saying is 5-gallon plants don't really provide any kind of privacy. And if the purpose is to impact the privacy or increase the privacy as a result of eliminating the wall, I just don't think 5-gallon plants will do it.
Commissioner, I understand your comment, and the intent is to give a semi-public, semi-private space, that sidewalk along the perimeter right-of-ways, to make it look like natural Sonoran Desert vegetation. I do know that if you take a native, or a plant material that's native to our Sonoran Desert, and you put it on a drip line, it grows much quicker than if we just leave it to the measly 9 inches of water we get a year.
If that.
So,
Thank you.
Michael?
If I may ask a question, the concrete ditch, or whatever you want to call it, is that on this slide that we are here? No, that's the parking.
Commissioner, the concrete channel that conveys water once it leaves the sandy bottom wash
Right.
is on the Carefree Terrace condominium property. It's not on our
And
property.
you're going to take that out and redo it?
What we'd like to do is work with Carefree Terrace condominiums to widen that channel so that it has a larger capacity.
I agree, I've seen it, and it's very minuscule.
Right.
So, and is that by the parking here, the covered parking there?
The
that
concrete
show-
channel as it exists today runs parallel to the covered parking structures you see in that graphic.
All right, so you're just going to enlarge it so that it accommodates more water?
I
That was
think,
number
I think
2
we're
out
going to
of
help the
3.
situation.
It was 2 out of the 3, right?
Yeah.
You're offering that. You haven't committed to that yet.
We're all over it. We would love to, and we will work with Carefree Terrace
Thank
as
you.
long as it takes to accommodate that.
Okay, have we worn the commissioners down? We're ready to take on, is now the appropriate time to open it for public comment?
Yes,
Have
it is.
anything you want to?
Do we need a motion before we do that?
No, we
Okay.
just need to,
So we're going to open this to public comment, and I have 2 cards here. And the winner is Bill Kenny, who wants to address the joint public hearing that we're in the midst of. Mr. Kenny, if you would identify yourself for the record and give your address. Oh, you don't have to give your address, just say you're a Carefree resident or don't.
Chairperson Burns, members of the Planning and Zoning Commission, my name is Bill Kenny. I'm here this evening representing the Alta Vista Apartments, located directly across Carefree Drive from the proposed project. By way of introduction, we've been members of this community for 33 years, so we've experienced much change in the town of Carefree. And for the record, we're not opposed to the proposed project. We have, however, raised concerns about storm drainage. Storm drainage flows to the northwest through a large corrugated metal pipe located under one of our drive aisles. There is a catch basin located at the southeast corner of our property and the contiguous property to the east. Initially, the drainage system worked adequately. However, the catch basin would regularly fill with silt and debris, requiring cleaning, which we performed at our expense. With the Alamarta residential project immediately to the east of the Alta Vista Apartments, our engineer worked closely with the town's engineer and the Alamarta development team to increase the height of the head wall at the catch basin and enhance and improve it. And Stacy, if you could show video 19. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt your drink. It's the miracle of modern
Not working
technology.
the way I had.
If you would click on 19 would be great. Thank you very much. This is flow across Carefree Drive, totally wiping out the catch basin. And while the improvements that were made with the Almarte development were beneficial initially, during significant rain events, the drainage system would not be able to handle the volume of water deposited into it, causing the catch basin to overflow and significantly send stormwater rushing down our drive aisles, causing significant property damage and an extreme unsafe condition to our residents and their guests. And Stacy, if you would please show number 18, video 18, right below it. Perfect. That's flow of water down our drive aisle. Now, we appreciate the applicant's continuance of this case. During the continuance, our engineer has been in communication with the applicant's engineer, and according to our engineer, they both believe that there's opportunity to reduce the potential for future failure of the drainage system by granting the applicant a variance from the town's policy of prohibiting the mixing of on-site and off-site flows. And unfortunately, our engineer is skiing in Telluride instead of joining us this evening.
Oh, yeah, it's always tragic.
In any event, our engineer recommends that the ability of the applicant's catch basins to utilize both on and off-site would help to minimize the flow as it comes down through the Carefree Terrace and under Carefree Drive and then through into the catch basin and through the culvert. In addition, our engineer recommends the placing of a new detention basin between River Stations 189 and 102, and again, I can't explain that, but it's just upstream of the culverts crossing Carefree Drive, and we believe, and he's here, I believe the applicant's engineer concurs with that also. We have the opportunity now to make the drainage system better. Let's take advantage of it. We ask that you approve the proposed project with a condition that allows for the mixing of on-site and off-site flows, that the town of Carefree grant the necessary variance for those flows, and that the town of Carefree, the applicant, and Alta Vista Apartments collaborate on the installation of the additional detention basin. We would like also this evening to commend the town of Carefree administrative staff. They have always been prompt, courteous, very helpful, and fair. And finally, we at Alta Vista Apartments are hosting the monthly Chamber of Commerce Mixer this Wednesday evening from 5:30 to 7, and we would like to invite each of you to join us, as well as the town administrative staff, so that you can experience firsthand our little slice of paradise here in Carefree. Thank you.
I don't know whether this goes to Stacy or to council. He's suggesting a condition or a variance?
It did seem like a waiver from our requirements. I think maybe CJ, are you aware of the condition that does not allow for the on-site and off-site flows to commingle? I was gonna say,
Yes.
I'll move myself.
Moving the phone. Mr. Chair, Commissioners, I'm not familiar with that restriction in our regulations for, I'm not sure what's being referred to in the mixing of off-site and on-site flows. I have an idea that they're, okay, so the detention basins that are proposed by the project are for their on-site water, the water that is stormwater that is generated from their impervious areas. Mixing off-site flows would, in my understanding, my speculation actually, entail harvesting some amount of water from the wash and putting it into those detention basins. That's not a requirement that's grounded in our code or regulation, applicable regulation.
I guess, out of interest, have you had discussions, are you amiable to any of this discussion? We're not gonna do anything here now. Please, and identify yourself for the record, please.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, I'm Jeff Giles. I'm with Klaus Engineering. We're the civil engineers on the project. Our address is 5010 East Shea Boulevard, Scottsdale. I believe that Mr. Kinney's engineer did look at something on his behalf, and the engineer provided a letter to staff. Staff shared it with us. We reached out to his engineer. He had never communicated with us directly, which is neither here nor there. But we reached out to him, and basically the conversation was the apartment complex that we're talking about was unfortunately constructed in the middle of a natural existing watercourse. Their original engineer, which is not their current engineer, designed it, and looking at their plans and their drainage report, they have some catch basins and a pipe that goes down the main drag of their development. It carries 100 CFS. That's a substantial amount of water, but 400 CFS goes right down their drive. Upstream is approximately 300 acres of tributary area that drain to the apartments. Our site is roughly a little over 3 acres, or 1% of the tributary area. Their engineers suggested that we provide detention basin on our property. We looked at that and did calculations and provided those calculations to their engineer. The result of that analysis was that we would have to not build our project, and we would have to excavate the entire site 5.5 feet deep to provide a reduction of tributary flow by 100 CFS.
By 100?
By 100 CFS.
And you need to save 400 or 500?
Yes, in excess. So our response to his engineer was, look, we looked at it, we've run these calculations, computer programs, provided it to them, and said, there's nothing we can do on our 1% tributary area site to attenuate the peak flows. In fact, he did agree, the engineer, that we are providing retention for what rainfall would run off of our site. We are retaining more than what the town would require, a 2-year storm. We're retaining a 6-hour because that's actually the peak flow because the tributary area is so large. So he agrees that we're not adding any flow to their existing condition. A detention basin would not provide any relief to them. We are not installing any additional drains, pipes, or what, directing any flows to them. So I think the most recent discussion had with his engineer was last week, but that was one of several conversations. These were phone conversations and emails.
This is not something that we're going to solve here. I suggest that maybe, I don't know how.
Well, Chairman Burns, if I don't mean to interrupt, what do you mean by solve here? I mean, I think that maybe the question from the commission is, you know, our town engineer has looked at this information. He has responded, and he felt that the applicant had responded accordingly. So unless you have more questions in that regard.
Well, I'm sympathetic to Alta Vista's problem. I just don't know that it's in our purview here and within our jurisdiction or whatever to resolve this, but I commend to the town further study of this matter. How's that?
But I do think,
Chairman Burns, I do want to clarify something. This drainage issue, we have been working with staff, I want to say, for well over a year. And they've been very cooperative and very meticulous and precise, and we appreciate that. Obviously, the builder doesn't want any liabilities. I don't want any liabilities, but I do want to mention that we're talking about staff. The drainage, the drainage report, the grading plan has also been reviewed and given a thumbs up by Maricopa County Flood Control District.
Okay. Well, I guess one last question that I'd have for you, just kind of an esoteric question. You're an engineer, correct?
Yes, sir.
You have a stamp, correct?
Yes, sir.
And is your stamp guaranteed for life?
Yes, sir.
So
It's guaranteed as long until it expires and until I no longer have professional liability insurance.
well, I guess I was just going to ask who stamped the original drainage plan for Alta Vista Apartments?
I don't know. I don't recall.
Mr. Chair,
Resuscitate
Mr. Chair,
him
Mr. Chair, I think we're getting a little off topic with that one.
Hey,
I just
that's
like-
up for the chairman to decide.
could I just ask one question of you, sir? I do believe I heard you say that, according to your studies, that you're not increasing any water flows down to Alta Vista.
Correct.
Is that, that's all I wanted to know.
Okay. Next card I have is from Pamela Sullins.
That would be me.
Well, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm Pamela Sullins, and Mr. Kenny is my client. I currently manage Alta Vista Apartments. Chairman Burns and the members of the Planning and Zoning Commission, I am pleased to be here and honored to have this opportunity. We are located directly across from this new development on Carefree Drive. As managers, we are on the front line in dealing with resident safety and the protection of the property when there are significant storm events, and that's our job. As you can see in the videos, there have been occasions when the drainage system has been unable to contain the volume of water during significant storms. And I personally was knocked down trying to cross that drive when you saw the streams of water flowing down the drive aisle during one of these events. As Mr. Kenny stated, we have an opportunity now to make the drainage system even better. Let's take that opportunity together. Please approve this project with a condition that allows the mixing of on-site and off-site flows. that the town of Carefree grant the necessary variance or continuance, and that Alta Vista Apartments, the town of Carefree, and the applicant collaborate on the installation of the proposed additional detention area basin. I would also like to make you and the town of Carefree administrators aware of an additional problem with the existing drainage. Could we look at we have the pictures up. Thank you. Please show the photographs. We make sure that the catch basin is kept free of debris and sand buildup at our expense. The condominium project on the south side of Carefree Drive does not necessarily maintain the grates covering their catch basin, which results in a failure of the system, causing stormwater to overflow across Carefree Drive and onto the surface of our property, again causing unsafe conditions and property damage. If the area-wide storm drainage system is to work properly, all parties in interest must do their part to maintain this system. We request that the town of Carefree place the condominium complex on notice and that it is their responsibility to maintain their storm drainage improvements and take proper action if they neglect to do so. In closing, I too would like to invite you to our mixer on Wednesday night. So you have the opportunity to come and join us, as we are part of the community and we're thankful that people do join in the community as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next comment, Ms. Julia Green.
Chairman and Commissioners, thank you. I'm here on behalf of Carefree Villas. Stacy, do you mind pulling up?
Yeah, I'm trying to.
Thank you.
Do you want this?
The one that show, my main question, I guess, is for the applicant, and on our side, will that be a
Can you identify, is that the property on the northeast corner there?
Right on that corner. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay.
And so, from my understanding on the plan, there'll be a retaining wall. There'll be 10 feet between the Carefree Villas and the retaining wall that they're putting in. Is that correct?
Right, there's
Mm-hmm. So that the 3 lines, is that a retaining wall?
the 2 yellow lines, yes, those are terrace retaining walls adjacent to your development.
Okay. So on the berm along Happy Hollow, our wall sits on that. So will that berm continue 10 feet and then the retaining wall drops down? Otherwise, our wall will just be like hanging and then, I mean.
I will let the applicant.
Okay. So I'm just curious, and I know the intent.
It's not going to be left hanging, though.
My main concern, and I know the intent would not be to destabilize our wall or foundation in any way, but my fear is that when you start moving that, our wall is going to. I mean, there's nothing there to. Go ahead, please. Mm-hmm. Podium. Okay.
Chairman Burns, Commissioners, good question. There will be a transition along Happy Hollow between the upper left corner of Carefree Villas and our development, because there's a considerable grade change between the finished floors at Carefree Villa and basically what is our unit 16, 15, 14, 13. So we terraced those retaining walls so that it's not just not one big tall wall, but it steps down to make it a little bit softer transition. In addition, I've stood in that street and I looked, now how are we going to do this? Right. So I wish I could blow that up, but that's the reason the wall closest to your community extends further towards Happy Hollow. The next tiered wall down is a little bit further to it's a little bit shorter, so that we can terrace that grade change from probably about 5 or 6 feet down to nothing. So it'll be a landscaped area at the end of the retaining walls, which will terrace down and make that transition. That's the best I can explain it at this point.
That answers, I guess, my addition, my follow-up to that would be, when you start, grading, and that starts moving the ground, and our wall, it starts moving our wall, how do we have recourse if our wall does come down? Or, can we ask that you reinforce our wall before you start doing it? How do we go about that?
Good question.
We can't afford for our wall to fall down. We don't have the money to build it back up.
I can guarantee you the town building inspector's not going to let us do anything to your wall that's going to negatively affect it. And if for some reason a grade tractor backed into it or something like that, we would of course repair it.
I was just structure-wise.
Yeah, structure-wise. And that's the reason that our walls are several feet, I can't remember if it's 5 feet or 10 feet, but we're several feet away from your wall. So the contributing area from the bottom of your footing towards our wall comes down at 45 degrees. That's how we placed our walls and tiered them down, so that there would be no effect on the footing that's holding up your wall.
Because one is flat, one of the wall, it's here on the wall, right? And then down here, it's way down here.
Yeah.
So there's going to be,
And
this can be a later time.
I'm sorry.
To take everybody's time.
I just wanted to answer her question best I could. Thank you very much.
Chairman Burns, if I may just add, I think one of, and hopefully this will provide some understanding or relief, is that we do have a very specific condition of approval that there will be a geotechnical engineer accepting and sealing all structural related site work. So it will have to be designed, and Chairman Burns is correct, through the inspection process as it's being constructed, the town would ensure that those requirements and those documents have been installed accordingly.
The next person I have a card from is Sarah Emerson. Again, would you identify yourself and that you're a Carefree resident and who you may be representing?
Representing myself, Carefree resident, Carefree Terraces. Thank you. A little emotional because I live less than 1,000 feet from the proposed site. So my question really is on what the town is going to do from a risk mitigation standpoint, quality of life. We have the legal right to a peaceful environment. My car literally is right under the water main. There's spray paint. Carefree Water Company just came and put that. My car is right a foot from the bunker. That will be taken out. Our HOA controls our air. That's our problem, not yours. But the bottom line is we rely on ambient temperatures, windows, and doors being open. So my question is around what steps will be taken for residents that are existing. And it's not just Carefree Terraces. There's hundreds of us in the surrounding community. I hear every morning, usually with the exception of Sunday mornings, when people's blowers are going in miles in all different directions. So knowing that we have a construction law that can start at 5 a.m. in the summers, what time are the trucks coming? Another question is around safety and security. We have one entrance in and out. One entrance in and out. What provisions will be made for us to be able to safely enter and exit on Carefree Drive? If we have an emergency with fire trucks or ambulances, or if we have to be able to get in and out, what guarantees will be made for our safety? Another question related to the time to build, and this is based on limited understanding, so I'm just asking for clarification, what steps the town is taking to encourage the builders, if this project is approved, to be a bit more hastened perhaps in the execution versus the previous development near Bashes that I believe took several years. Again, understanding that this is already set to be a two-phase project, we're talking about quite a bit of disturbance to existing residents. Number 3, I was here previously and talking about the economic development plan for the town. We're now talking about VRBO, Airbnb type people, 30 days at a time. What encouragement is there to try to get longer term residents? Or are we actually talking about developing property where we could be attracting more people to be staffing the butchery at Bashes that people want to complain that isn't open past 2 p.m.? I'm not talking about affordable housing, I'm talking about regular housing. Are we just opening this up so we have more vacation homes? What is the plan to adequately engage the developers so that A, they move them and sell them, occupy them more quickly than has been the case with the ones by Bashes? And number 2, how do we ensure that this is actually helping to meet our economic development priorities? Thank you.
Thank you. Any more comments from the public? So at this point, I believe I need a motion to proceed.
You don't need a motion to close the public hearing. You can just close the public
No,
hearing.
I just did.
Okay, you close the public hearing. You'll need a motion and a vote on both items separately.
Yeah, are the conditions of approval attached to one motion or the other?
That's a very good question.
They're on the preliminary plat.
They're for the plat.
Okay,
So
so
it's-
then, which would staff recommend we take in order? The variance first?
Even the waiver, the fill waiver. I would approve in my opinion, I don't think it matters, but I would approve the preliminary plat first and then approve the fill waiver.
And Mr. Chair, it's the 20,
I just,
go ahead.
there were 3 additional conditions,
Correct.
Stacy, if you could put them on the screen.
which I don't know what they are.
Oh, absolutely. So on this slide, I only noted conditions of note were the first 3 bullet points. The second 3 are the new conditions of approval to add to the list that's already in your staff report.
But there would be no way that we would approve a final plat that didn't comply with all zoning ordinance, subdivision ordinance regulations, would it?
Chairman Burns, I think that the reason was more for the applicant's knowledge versus the town's.
Okay. Everybody grading is the final budget. So, no, the grading drainage, revised, let's get me to exceed, okay. So we know that the 3. Can I have a motion for us to discuss this?
So moved.
With the 20
With the 23.
conditions, okay.
Sure.
Any discussion?
Well, it's more a question. I
Okay,
mean,
please.
given some of the public testimony having primarily to do with the drainage, right?
Right,
And given some of the comments by the engineer that what's going to happen on this new development in terms of flow, water flow, et cetera, does not really add to the current issues
right.
that are being faced by the development downstream, so to speak. How do we make sure that, well, let me rephrase it. I don't think we should be responsible, and I don't think, quite frankly, the developer should be responsible for bad engineering that occurred whenever Alta Vista was built, right? And so if the development that we're talking about, according to our engineers, has or will not contribute to additional flow to the Alta Vista apartments, recognizing for a moment that it was a bad engineering job to begin with, then I don't have any problems in, approving bullet point number 2, which starts with revised grading and drainage plans, et cetera.
Uh-huh,
That's my comment.
okay. Les?
I agree. If the current proposal impacted adversely the next-door neighbor, then it would be completely appropriate for the developer to join in the expense of mitigating it. But I think the evidence is pretty clear that this project will not have any adverse impact on Alta Vista and will not increase their problem, regrettable problem that's been there for a long time, but it has nothing to do with this development. And since that development is not going to negatively impact them, we cannot, in my view, impose any conditions as requested.
Okay. Well, no, I'm not gonna go that fast. Any questions? Okay, I have a few. Will staff and council look into, in number 2, it says, private streets terminating in cul-de-sac may exceed 400 feet in length and sidewalks or alleys are not required? Would you verify that the word not should not be in there between may and exceed? Because I don't know why we would say you can do it beyond 400 feet. I would understand why we would say could not exceed.
Yeah, Chairman Burns, we'll compare it to the subdivision ordinance. I think there is some language that might be missing.
Okay, thank you. And number 9, we're dedicating a 1-foot vehicular non-access easement. Who would that get dedicated to? Who would be the grantee?
Well, basically, a VNAE is an easement that restricts any kind of vehicle from crossing kind of this imaginary boundary.
Okay,
And so that would be something that we would ensure would be included on the final plat. I think it's not necessarily, it's an easement to.
Anybody?
I guess the town.
It's more of just a restriction.
Yeah.
So that no one can do it. See, it's
Okay.
recorded against the property.
okay, but normally there's
It-
a grantee and a grantor.
I guess it'd be dedicated to the town as a,
Okay, thank you. And then in 10, we talk about maintenance easements for site visibility triangles at all entrances. That's the 10-foot triangle, right?
It's like a
Is that-
30-foot triangle, but
What?
yeah. It's 30 feet.
30 feet?
Yeah.
Okay. Who does that get dedicated to, and who would perform the maintenance?
That would be, again, in favor of the town, but the HOA would be the entity that would maintain that landscaping.
Okay,
And that would be, a condition that we'd be sure was included on the final plat.
okay. And then we talked about already that grantor is the developer now who owns the parcel. Once he sells off all the parcels, the obligation goes to the HOA,
yeah,
and that will be clear to somebody?
correct. It's in the final plat now, and that note will get carried over to or it's in the pre-plat now, will get carried over to the final plat.
Okay, drainages, and again, would you check for CCR versus the condo, whatever those words were? And we're adding the 3, 21, 22, and 23, right?
Chairman Burns, may I add, or maybe ask the applicant, there was the 2 of the 3 drainage conditions that you were
Agreed to?
agreeing to. Is that still the case? You're agreeing to include that in your
Chairman
development?
Burns, Stacy, yes.
Should we include those in these conditions?
Were they in the presentation?
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah, then I would.
Okay, they were in the packet,
yep.
last 5 pages
Yes.
or whatever. It was a laborious way to get to those 5 pages.
So I'm just gonna give you one document next time.
Any other questions, observations, or comments before we call for the vote? Okay, you've heard the motion, you've heard the second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. Ayes appear to have it, do have it, so ordered. Boom. Okay, so the next thing is announcements.
Oh,
I move to second.
Which is the variance?
Variance on the cut and fill.
the waiver.
Okay, we got a
Just want to just clarify, it's not a variance, it's just a waiver.
Okay, we've been, it's been moved and seconded that we grant the waiver on cut and fill. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. I do have it, do have it, so ordered. Boom. Anything else?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners. Thank you, staff.
Carefree Green. Announcements, do we have it?
Chairman, no, I have no announcements this evening.
And I will entertain a motion to adjourn. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say no.